Good morning, everybody, and another warm welcome to everyone, to elected members and staff, to members of the public who may be watching the live stream, and also to any media. Got a number of apologies today. Got a couple of people joining on Zoom, but we've got an apology for Councillor Thompson. Is there anyone else? Right, yeah. So and we've got Brent Kells and Hannah Halali joining us on Zoom. So someone move, we accept the apology for Councillor Thompson. Councillor McCone, thank you. Councillor Blackler.
Yes, we do not hear the sound. Microphone on?
Yep.
No, just
okay. Right, no, we're all working. Not a technical hitch now. Right, so there's Councillor McCone and Councillor Blackler. Those in favour, say aye. Aye. And against, that's carried. Okay, we've now got, first of all, we go to declarations of interest. So do we have any declarations? Councillor Ryan and Councillor McCone, both for the item 7.1, public excluded. Is it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm declaring interest in agenda item 7.1, and I propose to manage it by leaving the room for the whole discussion and the vote.
Same.
Yeah, I concur.
Okay. Okay, we basically accept those. That's fine. No one else. Okay, we'll move on to public forum. We've got speaker for public forum, and welcome Linda Buxton. Linda's from the Cancer Society of Otago and Southland. So if you'd like to come forward to that table, is it Ainsley? Ainsley? Is it that table?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it says Andrew Larson.
Oh, why are you being difficult, Councillor Hopkins? So anyway, welcome along, and you've got the writing instructions for the microphone. That's good. So welcome.
Thank
to
you.
and look forward to hearing from you about your good work and how you can help us.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So tēnā koutou katoa, e rau rangatira mā, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa, ko Linda Buxton, aho, kei te kahui, matapukupuku, kei Otako, me murahuki, aho, e mahi ana. Tuatahi. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge each of you here today and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I'm Linda Buxton and I represent the Cancer Society. So at the Cancer Society, we are all too familiar with the impact a cancer diagnosis can have. Today, however, the focus is on prevention. Not all cancers are preventable, but I'd like to talk to you about two that are highly preventable, as in 90% preventable. They are skin cancer, which is our most common cancer, and lung cancer, which is our biggest killer. A person's health is the product of their environment and their behaviour, so we need to promote healthy environments as well as healthy behaviours, and this is where the council comes in. Councils are in a unique position to implement strategies that enable people to live healthy, active lifestyles. You recognise this in your long-term plan with safe and healthy communities. I'd like to acknowledge that this council already makes an effort to prevent both of these cancers. We are, however, asking for a little more. Waitaki Council currently supports smoke-free environments in our playgrounds, sports and recreation grounds, and at the Oamaru Public Gardens. This is under the Reserves Management Plan. We ask, however, that you update this to include vape-free and develop a smoke-free, vape-free policy for your council. I've included a sheet and information I will be giving you that shows the percentages of councils in Aotearoa who have vape-free in their policies. There is no doubt that having some vape-free retailers is important, as vaping can be an effective tool to help people quit tobacco. We also know that youth vaping has increased substantially, youth who have never smoked. We receive stories of regret experienced by young people who find they are now dependent on vaping due to nicotine addiction. We acknowledge that the Waitaki District Council puts people before tobacco industry profits. This council joined other Canterbury councils and wrote a submission supporting the measures in the Smoke-Free Environments Bill, which is now an act. Thank you for your support. Your Youth Council also submitted, and I had the pleasure of working with the chair on that. Just a reminder that cigarettes are a consumer product like no other. When used as directed, they kill up to 2/3 of their customers. We still have around 380,000 people who regularly smoke in New Zealand, not surprising given that they contain nicotine. Waitaki smoking rates are higher than the national average based on the last census, and there are pockets of very high smoking rates in this region. Smoking rates are not evenly distributed in the population, with high rates in our Māori and Pacifica communities and our low-income areas. Tobacco outlets are concentrated in our poorest communities. So nicotine has an inverse relationship with choice amongst consumers who are gripped by addiction. And nicotine is very much central to tobacco industry business model. Smoke-free environments, on the other hand, support people who are smoke-free to remain smoke-free and help those wanting to quit to be able to quit. That's why we are asking you to review the current situation and extend smoke-free areas and add vape-free to a specific policy. We're happy to provide examples from other councils and help develop the policy with your staff. I mostly, however, want to talk to you today about a different harm and a different cancer. The harm is excessive UV radiation and the cancer is skin cancer, which happens to be our most common cancer. I understand there is a plan to review specific recreation strategies, including a review of your playground policy. So shade is an important infrastructure issue if we want to turn the tide on skin cancer. Sure, people need to take responsibility to slip, slop, slap and wrap, but slipping into shade is only an option if some shade is available. We're not suggesting everything is covered, but we are asking that some built and natural shade is planned for and that it is specifically funded in the annual plan for our recreation spaces. Aotearoa has the highest death rate from melanoma in the world, along with Australia, the highest incidence. Yet skin cancer is highly preventable. Over 90% of skin cancer is caused by too much sun. Yes, we do need some sun, but New Zealanders get too much. Here in the southern DHB area, we have higher rates of melanoma than many other districts. In fact, the age standardised rate per 100,000 in 2019 was the second highest in the country. Shade is expensive, so beginning with playgrounds that have high patronage is a great place to invest in some high quality shade. Sunburn at any age increases the risk of melanoma. The more sunburns, the greater the risk. Our UV environment from September through to the end of March is usually high enough to cause people with fair skin damage in Oamaru. UV radiation peaks in January. We know this because NIWA have provided 10 years worth of UV index data. The UV index is a measure of the intensity of the UV radiation. And the larger the number, the more intense the UV. I have included a map and with the information for each of you. And the World Health Organization recommends sun protection when the UVI is 3 or above. The map will show you that Oamaru, we have about 3 months where the UVI is 6 or above. And I can tell you that on average, we have 62 days at or above 8 and a handful of days when the UVI is above 11. So UV radiation increases the closer you get to the equator. So northern councils are a little ahead of Waitaki, the best place to be in terms of shade provision, partly because, well, let's face it, we don't particularly need shade to cool us down. For instance, the Northern District Council annual plan shows 360,000 has been set aside for shade and playgrounds. But please remember, unlike the sun's light and heat, we cannot feel or see UV radiation. Heat and UV are two completely different things. That's why on a cool or cloudy day, we can still get sunburnt. Appropriate shade in Waitaki will make the outdoor space comfortable to use in all seasons and may even extend the use of play equipment beyond summer months by providing shelter from rain. It can be aesthetically pleasing and is an equitable form of sun protection and will provide protection for generations to come. So strategically planted trees can also be a good option, but usually it's a combination of both, a little bit of built shade and natural shade that is needed. So UV radiation can reach a person on the ground directly from the sun above, but it also can be scattered from the sky and reflected by surfaces. So good quality shade has the potential to significantly reduce UV exposure. We don't think that the public should have to choose between, for example, play equipment and shade in a country with one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world. Modern towns provide some shade for people to choose to use. Many of our schools in Oamaru are sun smart and many people look after their tamariki with sun protection. And if we could have just a little more shade strategically placed where people congregate, we will reduce overall UV exposure. UV damage builds up over a lifetime, and damage we do in childhood remains with us. It changes our DNA. It causes about 90,000 keratinocytic or non-melanoma skin cancers every year in this country, in addition to melanoma, and they all need treating. Melanoma is an aggressive cancer, and twice as many men die from melanoma than women. Together with Waitaki District, councils playing their part, we can turn the tide on skin cancer. I'll just leave you with an example, like Marlborough District Council are aiming to have 85% of new playgrounds or playground renewals to have shade included in the design. Finally, we're providing you each with a new sun hat to go with the information mentioned. I'll be emailing you 2 short clips as well. One is the latest Australian campaign about UVR, and the other, a 2-minute clip, is of a Dunedin oncologist who I think grew up in Oamaru. And he's interviewing Mike Hesson, who, as many of you know, used to coach the New Zealand cricket team. It's about the impact a melanoma diagnosis had on his whānau. And I'll finish with a whakatauaki. Mahia te mahi, hei paenga mō te iwi. Work for the betterment of the people. These are wise words from Ngā Princess Te Puia Hirangi. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you for that. Councillors, sobering stuff. Do you want anyone got any questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah.
Could you just turn your microphone off in between speakers? No, that's all good.
Look,
That's just the way it works.
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm something I have been for some time troubled by Cancer Society's attitude to vaping. As I understand from my reading of the literature, nicotine is not a carcinogen in itself. You were saying it is or it isn't. Right. So ergo, it is not therefore problematic in terms of dealing with persons contracting cancer. And the other issue is when you vape, you're not inhaling smoke, you're inhaling steam. So why should we take the same view, something that is categorically different from cigarettes? I mean, vaping is actually different. It's a different process. It involves a different inhalation. So why should we treat it the same?
You raise the good issue that it is correct. Vaping at this point does not cause cancer. Okay. Vaping, however, is addictive. And when our young people who have never smoked before start vaping and have a nicotine addiction and have to wake up in the night to feed their vaping addiction, their nicotine addiction, there is a bit of a problem. Secondly, there is emerging evidence that vaping, although it is definitely much better than smoking. So if you are someone who smokes, we would like you to shift to vaping. It will reduce your risk of cancer and other health impacts such as stroke. However, vaping doesn't come without its risks, and it took a long time to find out that tobacco smoking killed us, and even longer for the industry to recognize it. And so although we have vaping as a tool to give up tobacco, we do not wish people who have never smoked before to take up vaping. So we would like to see our playgrounds and areas like that smoke free and vape free.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Just probably a question for staff. You've talked about the playground strategy or policies and so forth. How easy would it be to include a review of that in time for the annual plan for a consultation? If it was fairly simple as far as adding vaping in there. Sorry.
Are you asking me though?
I'm asking you.
Oh, I have to turn it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't answer that off the top of my head, but I'll certainly make some inquiries, and if we can include it into the annual plan process, yeah, that seems like a sensible way to proceed.
I mean, you can just begin with your play areas that have the most patronage and just do it on a gradual process going out. So we're not really asking you to just put cover on everything. We're just making some sensible decisions going forward. Be really good. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's fine. My initial instinct is that if we're going to have a rule for one, it's clearer if it's a rule for all, but we'll have discussions around that as to appropriateness and whatever enforcement and so on might be required if we do have that.
finish with saying I have included this sheet in your information, and it will actually show you of all the other councils what their smoke-free, vape-free policies look like.
Okay,
Helpful.
right. Oh, thank you very much, Linda. Sorry, Brent, didn't see you there.
I was just wondering whether it might be a good thing to come back to the Otamatata community on. We're installing a new playground next year, and I know we've got some better off funding and stuff, and perhaps that's something we could ask them to include in their design.
That'd be
As far
amazing.
as the shade goes.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we've got a high index up here. Probably not a bad idea to have that discussion.
Yeah. No, that would be good. Okay, thanks very much, Linda. And yeah, Christmas has come early.
We use put all the hats around and make them.
So thank you very much for taking the time to come and see us today and speak to us. Thank you for the work that you are doing, and all the best. Have a good Christmas. Okay, we'll now move to item 4.1, public minutes of the council meeting held on 6th December. So it's on a separate addendum, I believe.
Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
If I may raise this as a serious point of order. I just wonder if these minutes should lie on the table and be ratified at our next meeting. We've only just received them, and we haven't really had a chance, given the other material and the huge amount of it, to read them thoroughly. I think it might just be an appropriate thing to say that we haven't had the statutory amount of time to look at them. They can wait. What would your ruling be if I raised that as a point of order?
As the person who had to go through them at 9 o'clock last night and make amendments and so on, so you could have them today, that would have been a waste of my time last night.
Right.
But I do understand where you're coming from, having received them later than that, of course. So, yeah, have others had a chance to go through them?
I had a very cursory read.
Okay. So what we'll do, I think at the end of the public excluded session, we can adjourn the meeting and we can briefly reconvene later this afternoon, and after you've had a chance, well, after morning tea, if you have a quick read through them then. So we'll move past those and we'll go to item 5.1, the ratification of the national direction for plantation and exotic carbon afforestation submission.
Don't we have the meeting schedule, 5.2?
No, 5.1 always comes before 5.2. Yeah, just about always in this universe. Okay, so this is obviously ratifying the decision. So we've got we've seen this. It's actually gone. So there's not really any opportunity to change it. And there's no more opportunity to change it. But happy to have any feedback. Have we, Mr. Cook, have we asked to speak to this submission?
I will have to check that. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think we did, but anyway, no. Is there any feedback first of all? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, I think it's a very good submission, and the only thing I would say, and it's a general comment perhaps for inclusion for future submissions, there's a reference on page 12 to land use as a backbone of agricultural economies and provides substantial economic and social benefits. Rural economies such as Waitaki depend on agricultural industries for employment. I'd like to see us be a bit more explicit in that regard and indicate that it is our biggest, it's our most important, it creates the greatest number of jobs, the economic benefit it delivers to the community and also its contributions for well-being. So it's just a sort of a general comment that I would like to see us perhaps amplify in future submissions on similar sorts of matters, of which there will be many, I'm sure.
I think we'll note that and particularly for future submissions. If there's an opportunity to speak to this, obviously we can emphasise that a bit more. But I don't believe we are looking to speak to it. Any other comments? Councillor McCone?
There's just a direction on the second or third last page about Indigenous plantings as opposed to exotic plantings. I think that could open a can of worms. The land is freehold and the people buy it. It's the determination of how you do it and the structure you run in the outside of it to run against wildfires and damage to neighbouring properties. It's the expense of the neighbours rather than what they grow in it that's actually the problem.
Okay, we'll note that. Okay, any other comments? Someone like to move we ratify the submission? Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Linwood, thank you. Any further discussion? We'll put it, those in favour say aye. And against? That's carried. Thank you. Right, jump back to the addendum and we'll go to item 5.2, the meetings schedule. Right. So I'm not sure if anyone officers want to speak to this. Governance advisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elected members have already seen this document. It's been up in a review room and the principles that were underlying it then have already been discussed at a workshop. So I think it's, take the report as read, points are in there. The meeting days are the same, but there is a different structure to the way it's being set up this time in your calendars. So it will be placeholder entries initially, and they will be replaced at some point in the future once the timetables have been set as for which particular meetings will be done and in which order. So it will be double scheduling across the year, but it will just allow the flexibility to happen. We have to move timetables often, and it just means that you can actually see at a glance that every Tuesday will be occupied by council business, and you can see roughly what's going to happen, and so can staff, but the timing issues will be something that we'll just have to deal with. We do have to be mindful of the need to deal with timings in a timely manner in order to meet the legislation for public notification of meetings. So I'll just put that in to remind everybody that we will have to do that as well. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions? I had a chance to look at it. Yeah, we've obviously trialed what we did since last August, I think it was. And you know, I don't think we had long enough to get into a rhythm, but obviously this year this coming year is the opportunity to get into that more regular rhythm of council meetings most fortnights, and more importantly for staff to get in the rhythm of having reports coming up, and yeah, having more opportunity for reports to come up. You know, there's not having to work to a 6-week program, but rather to a 2-week one. So the workload can be evened out for them and for us when it comes to the amount of reading that we have and the amount of decision making we have on any particular council day. I'm sure that won't get rid of all of the big days, but it'll certainly help, and just help with staffing side of things as well. So yes, look forward to getting into it and seeing how it goes. Someone like to move that we adopt the meeting schedule? Councillor Linwood, thank you. Councillor Ryan, thank you very much. Any further comments? Put it, those in favour say aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Right, that was the only public parts of the meeting. We've got one public excluded part to the agenda. So we'll get someone to, we'll go into that, and then we will, when we finish that, we will we will go back into public for the minutes, which will be a fairly straightforward thing by that time, I think. So someone like to move we go into public excluded, please. Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Blackler, second that. Those in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. And we'll just wait while things